This is Steve Sweeney. That's who was talking with me. You'll be doing a presentation today. You probably remember him from last week if you were here. So, Steve, I'll hand it over to you and let me know if you need any help.
Okay. Good afternoon. I can never figure out whether I'm the president or the CEO. So this week, I think I'm going to be the president. But most of you already know me. But for those that don't, I'm Steve Sweeney. We have a lot to cover today, so I'd like to hold off answering any questions until the end of the presentation. But as Robin mentioned, since we'll be using the GoToMeeting chat window to take questions, you can enter your questions in the chat window at any time. So it should be pretty convenient. Sorry, I just found out that slide advance doesn't work when you have the GoToMeeting slide open. But I've got it working again now. So today I'll be presenting the second of 3 webinars that will help you to understand how email is processed on your gateways. The first webinar, Understanding the Mail Log, that we held last week is available for viewing from the link on the support page of our website. Today's presentation on understanding email headers, along with next week's webinar, should give you an understanding of the tools and methods you need to track and solve email problems. So let's start today's presentation with a quick overview of how email actually works. The average user thinks the simple diagram above is pretty much how email works. I send an email and it shows up on your computer. But that's not correct. The average message that is transferred over the internet passes through at least 4 relays. So how does email really work? Sending an email begins with the sender and the application they use to create and send the email. The technical name for this application is a mail user agent, or MUA in acronyms, more commonly referred to as a mail tool. After the sender creates the message, mail tool uses a protocol to forward the email to a mail hub. The most commonly used protocol for sending email is the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, or SMTP. The mail hub is simply a computer that can both store and forward emails. To forward the email onto the recipient, the mail hub uses an application known as the MTA, or Mail Transport Agent. If the recipient is not using the same mail hub as the sender, the MTA is called to send the email through gateways, the internet, and finally onto the recipient's mail hub, where the message is probably stored. The message is delivered when the recipient's mail user agent contacts their mail hub and retrieves the message using POP, IMAP, or MAPI protocols. So to quickly review applications and protocols, the sender uses an application known as the mail user agent, or mail tool, to create and send the message off, send an email off to the mail hub. The mail hubs use an application known as the MTA, or Mail Transport Agent, to receive, store if necessary, and then forward the email onto the next hop on its way to the final destination, which is the recipient's mailbox. And the protocols used by these applications are POP, the Post Office Protocol, IMAP, the Internet and Message Access Protocol, MAPI, this is Microsoft's messaging application programming interface used principally by Exchange servers internally. They speak SMTP to send mail out. And SMTP, the Simple Mail Transport Protocol, which is what most servers use. An email typically consists of 4 parts. The envelope, which contains the from email address and the to email address. Note that the envelope is typically discarded when the message reaches its final destination, but the information contained in the headers is contained in that envelope is retained in the headers, as you'll see in a few minutes. The second part of the email is the header, which we'll take a closer look at in just a moment. The header contains the details of all the processes the email went through on its way to its final destination. The header, and please note, the header is not normally or typically shown in a normal mail tool configuration. The third part of an email is the payload, or body of the message. This is the part of the message that is commonly displayed by the user's mail tool. And the last part of the email can contain attachments. But before we examine a typical email, let me just say a few words about how to view the headers of an email. Email headers are normally concealed by the user's mail tool, and every mail tool uses a different method to display the email headers. So rather than spending a lot of time today reviewing how to view the headers in each of the 10 or so most commonly used mail tools, we've created reference sheets with URLs that will show you how to view the headers for most mail tools. This reference sheet can also be downloaded or viewed from the webinar tab in the support section of our website. But there are two quick methods that work on all mail tools. The first is to view the message source using the menu or keyboard shortcut for your mail tool. Now, this is what I do, because I use Thunderbird because I use a lot of platforms. So I just hit, and I have an Apple, so I mostly work on it. So I just hit Command-U, and bing, up pop the headers in a separate window, and it's searchable. So I can highly recommend that method. The second is simply to save the message as a text file, then use an editor to open the text file. This has some advantages, too, because typically you can search for things you're interested in the editor you opened the text file with. So now let's take a detailed look at a typical email header, and we're going to exit PowerPoint for a little while. And go in to look at email header example. This document is also downloadable from the website. Will be downloaded. It's not there now. It'll be there shortly. The screen now shows, hopefully your screen now shows an example of a typical email that was saved as a text file. Since the envelope is normally discarded after delivery of the message, and this message has no attachments, what we see is only the header and the body of the email. And to make parts of this message more readable or understandable, I've added some color to delineate different parts of this example. Headers like mail logs you have to really read them carefully to get everything they can tell you. So the colors basically, the start of the received from header will be highlighted in yellow. Now this is the header which occurs at the start of each message handoff or relay hop, as we'll see in a few minutes. The name of the sending server will be in blue. The receiving server will be in red. The message ID, and this is very important, will be in magenta. Trace headers will be black. Okay, and what are trace headers? Trace headers are the header lines which are positioned between the received from lines. And I'll try to show you what I'm talking about in just a couple of minutes. Informational headers will be grayed out because we're not really interested in them. These are the header lines which are not positioned between the received from headers. They most commonly occur at the end of the headers and just above the body. And finally, the body of the message will be green. Okay. The important thing to remember when examining headers is that trace headers, which we're really interested in, which describe the path the message is just taken, are read from the bottom to the top of the file. They're read backwards. So if you scroll to the bottom of the file, hold on here, let's scroll to the bottom of the file. That's it. There's the body of the message at the bottom of the file. We'll find the body. And just above the body, we'll find the end of the headers. And this, okay, here's the end of the headers. Reading up, we find the first received from header. Here it is. This is the first hop, the message that the email went through. Notice the data is grouped into key value pairs. The key value here is received. And everything else is the data. This is all the data. Brackets, okay, brackets. Okay, I've been hanging around Steve Freegard and English people for too long. These are brackets. We call them parentheses. If you're in Europe, you call them brackets. The data inside the brackets is treated as a comment, informational comment. So let's analyze in detail the third, this is the most interesting header, I think, the third hop right here. Okay, I've just highlighted the entire header. Received, value. Now, what the received header is telling us is the server that connected to relay the mail identified itself as ipex.fsg.edu. Oh, by the way, all these names are fictitious. IP addresses are absolutely masked. You can't steal any data from this example file. The second part, whoops, they're live links. Sorry. The second part is this comment. This shows the IP address that connected, okay, and then translates the IP address into a PTR record with a DNS lookup, a reverse DNS lookup. And in this case, they match. Whoops, did it again. In other words, the computer identified itself by its real name tied to that IP address. The next portion is the server that received the message. Now, this is our Service Bureau BMX Plus server. It's using Haraka version 2.1.4, and the protocol it's using is ESMTPS. So you might understand that ESMTP is Extended Send Mail Transfer Protocol. S indicates it's got some security attached to it. And actually what it is in this case, it's an ESMTP session that's secured and encrypted using TLS. Okay. The next piece of data. Sorry about this vanishing screens. The next piece of data is the Haraka message ID. 90% of the time when you look at email headers, this is the data you'll be looking for. You'll be looking for some message ID that you can go in the logs and grep or grep for, and you will find the data that you're looking for. You'll find all the details of what the server thought or logged about the message. And we'll get into that in some detail with some methodology next week. We also save, Haraka saves the envelope from here. Now, the email address in this envelope from is right here. It's just the last part of this line. It's srs@fsg.edu. Now, I'm trying to find my place over here. Sorry. This is where a bounce message would be sent if the message could not be delivered for any reason. It will be sent to the envelope from header. The next part of the headline is a comment. Okay, it's the version, cipher, or verify. This contains the TLS version and cipher information. The verify OK means that the common name supplied in the certificate matched the host name of the machine, and the certificate chain was trusted by the server. If the certificate chain could not be verified, then this would show verify fail. Now, verify fail, just a side note here, verify fail, a lot of servers on the internet will verify fail on the certificate because they use a self-signed certificate. The only time it's important to use a real cert is if you've got external clients who are checking the cert when they connect to your mail hub using their mail tool. If you don't have a true cert, they will get a one of those warnings, dangerous site, don't go to your mail hub, run screaming from the room messages. So just a side note, if you got people connecting, get a cert. They're cheap. Now, we skipped most of the headers since it normally, okay, lots of headers. Look at all of, we skipped all of this, okay? Since normally we're not concerned with the data that these headers contain. If you are curious as to what a specific header means, simply Google the headers key and you'll probably find a definition or some explanation. So let's head back to PowerPoint for a second. Let's take a moment to look at a tool that is available to analyze headers and what it does and doesn't do. The best tool I've seen is the MX Toolbox Header Analyzer webpage, but it's far from perfect. Actually, I call it more of an organizer and a calculator than an analyzer. Let's take a look at this tool in action. Okay. I'm going to start with this screen. Here I've used the same header. I've just pasted them in the box that we just saw in the example. If we hit Analyze Header, let's show it. It doesn't take very long, but again, it doesn't do a lot, but it is useful. It shows the graph. It first displays a graph showing the relays and the time the message spent in each relay on its way to the recipient, and also shows the total time right up here. The next portion shows a listing of the hops with a partial listing of the received from header values that each relay added. So we just looked at a lot of different entries in that received from header line, of which most of them didn't make it here. Okay. The third part is a partial listing of the informational headers in no particular order, which makes them mostly useless, since where the header line occurs in the header can sometimes tell you which relay added that informational header, and that might be useful. And finally, it just gives you regurgitates a copy of what you told it. This is handy. I'm not knocking this tool. It's handy for quickly seeing the relays that handle the message, some basic information about each relay, what protocols it's using, and the time it took the message to be delivered. And it certainly does it in a much easier way than parsing through the mail header in a text tool does. But, and this is a really big but, it's missing the most important part of the headers, the message ID used by each relay. Most of the time, you examine a header just to find a specific message ID, which is then used to look up the message in the logs of the mail log database. So, but the good news is that when Steve Frigard saw the MX Toolbox header analyzer, he said we can do a lot better. FSL is coming soon. Email Analyzer will retain all the important information, like message IDs.
Steve, you might need to change your screen there, where we're looking at your PowerPoint presentation screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Rob.
No problem. Sorry to interrupt. There you go.
I'll give
back
it
to
a
our
try
regular
here.
programming.
Don't try to use GoToMeeting on a Mac. It's pretty brain dead, and it's not that hard to support on a Mac, but for some reason I don't want to. So I have to do some machinations to get you to see the right screen. In any event, what's coming soon is we're going to come up with, and pretty soon, we're going to come up with a new mail header analyzer that retains all the message IDs and actually analyzes information that we have in the header that we can use. We can do things like show the country IP of the relays. We can show RBL information on the relays and a lot more. So stay tuned. We'll be making an announcement in the not terribly distant future. This finishes up today's session on understanding email headers. Within a few hours, there'll be a link on our website to the YouTube video recording of this presentation. And there will be a PDF file of the example headers we just reviewed with additional notes. You can just follow as a reference to use. So please join us at the same time next Thursday for the final presentation in this series, where we use what we've learned in the first two webinars to troubleshoot the missing email. And this is the presentation I'm excited about, because what I'm trying to do is come up with a flow chart, a methodology of analyzing an email problem. If this, do that. If not, do this. If both of these happen, don't do anything. And, of course, the ultimate exit point, run for the hills, the sky is falling. So it should be the most fun of the three presentations. And having said that, I think we're in. Questions, please.
We are. Thank you, Steve.